Hello, my name is Isabella Dudley.
And I'm Taja Jackson.
And today we're going to be talking about the scene analysis from the film Breathless. Throughout this scene, we see that he is being chased, or that he's running away from something, and that she's trying to chase after him. And we see that there's blood coming from his back, so either he's been shot or stabbed or hurt in some sort of way. But he flails towards the end, leading to her meeting up to him, just looking shocked and surprised. So the three different techniques that we're going to be talking about that we see that was implemented in this scene was the usage of longer takes or handheld shots, the scene environment, and also the overarching theme in the scene. So as for throughout the scene, we see that they don't cut to different shots or takes, especially when the man is running. We just see them kind of dollying towards him, but never like any other shots of like seeing his face or what have you. We only see his face whenever he falls to the ground. And then as well as the man running, we also see the woman's reaction to him being shot, and also it being longer takes rather than it just being like straight up jump cuts. We hold on her emotion. So with that, with the emotion being evoked, this technique of longer holds helps the audience to dig deeper into the feelings of the characters, like when she is looking at him, but not exaggerating her response, but giving more of a relatable emotion of shock, kind of like, this more kind of digging towards like what she's truly feeling, rather than in German expressionism, they tend to show rather than tell, or give it more obvious to the audience. So as for context with this technique, dealing with long holds, we see these becoming more common in the film industry around the period of the French New Wave era. And in the French New Wave era, they focus on the story of the film rather than the traditional structure of making a film. So for instance, like whenever there would be like a terror scene, and they would, try to get coverage of one of the villain, and they would get coverage of the victim. In this case, they would hold that continuous shot and just keep the action going with either it being handheld, dolly, or just tracking, what have you.
And now for the theme of the scene. So the interactions with the characters help set the relationship and how they both are running towards something but not the same goal. So we see this parallel between the two, especially with Ginger. And in this scene, their distance from each other showcases their attempt to find freedom, one being from the pressures of life and the other being from loneliness. And we mainly see the trope of the girl chasing her man. We see this more in a satirical sense in this scene, and specifically from the readings that we read of ideology and analytical state of apparenthesis, where ideology is the prejudged principle we see, where there are more certain ideologies implemented like in the Hays Code, such as gender roles and violence, like the use of firearms and brutality in the technique of committing murder. And from the quote in the book, it states, what really takes place in ideology seems therefore to take place outside of it. That is why those who are ideology believe themselves by the definition outside of ideology. One of the effects of ideology is a practical designation of ideological character of ideology by ideology. Ideology never says, I am ideological. It is necessary to be outside ideology, and in scientific knowledge to be able to say, I am in ideology. Due to Michelle being the face of this sort of low-rent petty theft, who not only steals but kills, it can be seen as a commentary of the class divide between rich and poor, and gender roles as well. And Patricia is the one who has a stable job, a stable income of living, and a place to stay. It mirrors the responsibilities of women who feel they have to have more than a man. And another quote that we have also is, "But let us leave this point, although it is heavy with consequences which are not just theoretical but also directly political sense. For example, the whole theory of criticism and self-criticism, the golden rule of Marx's lineage practice of class struggle, depends on it." Patricia is dimmed as this all-around American girl critiques Michelle's way of living, sure unconventional at times, but we are to assume that she comes from a place of wealth and status, differing from Michelle, who spends the film running away from trouble and corruption.
And so for the usage of the environment in the scene, the set is only just showing the background, being more of a speedy traffic and random pedestrians around the area. And since it is a speedy or rapid background, I feel as though the background actors weren't truly actors, but rather just the director using the environment and guerrilla shooting. So just kind of setting up the camera and just going for a take rather than like getting the probable cause to actually shoot there, getting permits, getting actors, getting all the, principles that they need to make the film, make the set look like it is real rather than it just being real. The emotions evoked through the usage of the environment would be for the characters to be the focal point, or for them to have all, for it to just be them, rather it be like them being isolated from the background, although the background is very much fast-paced. And it helps to make the audience more immersed in the scene, since most of the background is a division from the characters. And then as far as context, when thinking about shooting locations contextually, one reason we see shooting in unpreconstructed sets is because of a neorealist. In that era, they had to guerrilla shoot since the effects of post-war were still going on, like Nazis still walking around while they're trying to film about, the effects of war. So they would have people in Nazi costumes, but, they would get in trouble if seen with doing that. So they would have to kind of go on the spot and shoot. Although that might be risky, it did help on financial expenditures.
Overall, in this scene in Breathless, it couples technical filmmaking techniques with characterization as a means of satiring pervading ideologies about gender. The scene mirrors the French Marxism movement that critiqued long traditions of status and gender. And also we see during the scene, we see from Patricia's view in the audience of the perceived notion that we know Michelle is running to his death. The long take brings us in the ideology of knowing what's to come of ourselves in dangerous situations like this. Though Michelle's continued run fills 90% of the scene, we know Michelle's coming to terms with his death sentence, as the character's definition of "I was an ideology" to "I am an ideology," as he falls to his eyes of Patricia and the policeman. She knows she can't save him, but yet she's running behind him, as almost as if it's her duty to do so, which has gender roles come into play as well. And we feel as though the director was very intentional with this, as the director, Jean-Luc Lagarde, was definitely an advocate of the Marxist movement in France, and he implemented a lot of his own beliefs and Marxist beliefs in the films that he created today. Thank you.
Thank you.